Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. Today we're going to be talking about a rather recent development with respect to Thai immigration and visas. Coming to us from Khalsat English's website, khalsatenglish.com. The writer on this article is Sasiwan Mokhasin, staff reporter. August 18th, 2017 is the time of publication. The title is 4-Year Professional Visas Get Green Light. Bangkok. A plan to offer 4-year visas to highly skilled professionals and investors was endorsed Friday by the cabinet. Those who obtained the so-called quote-unquote smart visa can stay in Thailand with their spouse and children for up to 4 years without applying for a work permit. I'll come back to that. That's interesting. Unlike other visa holders who have to report to the authorities every 90 days, they would only need to present themselves to the Immigration Bureau annually, according to information published online by an agency promoting the Prime Minister's agenda. To be eligible, applicants must be investors, startup entrepreneurs, high-level executives, or highly skilled professionals. The announcement did not detail which skills would be considered. To quote further, more details will soon be released online by the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, according to Director Ampon Kittiampon. Okay, and we'll keep you updated through this channel when the rules specifically change on this topic. But this is interesting. This is a significant development if this transpires. The first thing to keep in mind is we're far away from implementation of this policy. This just received cabinet approval Friday. That being said, cabinet approval is a significant step with respect to regulatory changes here in Thailand, especially with respect to immigration and visa matters. The other thing to keep in mind is certain of these sort of exceptional visa categories and there are certain visas associated with Board of Investment BOI companies which can have the visa and the work permits issued in 2-year increments. These sort of exceptional situations or documents come to mind when sort of talking about this situation. The thing to keep in mind is oftentimes this is fairly narrowly restricted to a specific subset of individuals who are here in the kingdom and for specifically narrowly defined subsets of business activities. So people are going to be somewhat apt to read this and make sort of the general statement, oh, Thailand's going to have 4-year visas here pretty soon. Probably unlikely. And I suspect there's probably going to be a minimal investment component to this, which will likely rule out smaller operators, sort of the F&B businesses, the true small business operators who are of foreign derivation, who are maintaining lawful status through a B visa and a work permit over here. The one thing I found rather interesting in the article, and I will be following up with in another video, it noted that they can stay for up to 4 years without applying for a work permit. Now, in everything I read, this was kept a little bit vague, and I'm still reading up on this. Bangkok Post and The Nation also posted some articles with respect to this, but Khalsat was the first one I saw, so I went ahead and quoted them in this video. So that would be quite a departure from general business visa practice and immigration policy protocols up to the time of this filming. I have to imagine that this will probably only apply in those situations with respect to investor visas, where they mention that investors in companies here in Thailand may be eligible for this 4-year professional sort of smart visa, as they call it. I have to expect that non-work permit requirement would probably only apply to like a passive investor sort of scenario, because Thai law has been pretty clear, and the regulation and enforcement of Thai labor law up to this point has had a pretty cogent policy, which is anybody engaging in what could in any way be described as quote-unquote work or employment activities is going to be subject to the rules with respect to the need to have a work permit. So I have to imagine that there's only going to be some very limited, very narrow situations where you're going to see somebody be able to get one of these visas without the need to go ahead and get a work permit. Because up to this point, work authorization and immigration status are two totally different legal criteria here in Thailand, legal categorizations, I should say, here in Thailand. As of the time of this filming, one's immigration status is not necessarily tied specifically to one's visa status. A very good example of this are individuals who have permanent residence here in Thailand. They also need to go ahead and get a work permit. It's a little bit different than almost any other country where permanent residence has the labor authorization sort of built into the residential status. Meanwhile, things like a marriage visa here in Thailand allow the holder of a marriage visa here in Thailand to apply for a work permit, but a marriage visa in and of itself is not necessarily that status doesn't necessarily go hand in hand, again, with work authorization. So, but that being said, and we've seen situations, I personally have dealt with situations in the past where volunteer activities here in the kingdom, certain unpaid activities here in the kingdom, things that could maybe even be described as sort of a passive studying type of activity here, have been adjudicated to have been work, and the failure to obtain a work permit to engage in those endeavors has oftentimes resulted in fines and other types of penalties. So I think it's fairly safe to conclude that probably this notion that these are going to be issued without necessarily the need for work permits, I think that's only going to be in narrow cases, probably involving investors. And the other thing to keep in mind, this is yet to be implemented, so we're quite a ways off from probably seeing implementation, although the government does appear to be taking this to be a significant priority here. And notwithstanding that, once the rules and regulations on this topic are ultimately promulgated, it stands to reason that it's only going to be in sort of a narrow subset of individuals and business activities where these visas are going to be available.